That first song was going, and as Bill was reading and you were talking on the meditation, reminded me of the woman from Samaria at the well. Jesus asked her for a drink of water. She was very amazed because these people did not do that. The men didn't ask a woman for anything back then. And he says, aren't you the lady that has 5 husbands in the city, Jerusalem? And she said, how would you know that? And he said, well, you're giving me a drink of water from this well, but I can give you a drink of water that's from the living well of water. You'll never thirst. You'll never be dry. You'll always have plenty. What did that mean when I was 15 years old and started reading my Bible? I did not have a clue. As the years went by, I understood. It's the psychic abilities and the premonitions and the feelings and the hunches and things that all of you get, not just me, but I happen to be born in a line of females that were psychic, grandmother, mother, on and on. Seems to be just in the female part of the families. And it's been a blessing and a curse, both, as you can imagine. Working with the police, finding missing children, many times they wouldn't listen to me over the last 50 years when I knew what I was seeing was real, but they didn't have enough proof. So they would find the child when it was too late, but it would always be where I said it would be. And it got very discouraging, and I tried to quit this gift for a long time. But every time I would go somewhere, restaurant with someone or anywhere, I'd start kind of tuning into the people around me. And it became a blessing rather than a burden, because I could see how it affected the people. You know, it's like that lady from New York, what's her name, the psychic there, that does everybody in the country when she sees them. She starts twisting her mouth and starts tuning in, and here it comes. But that's what you do. You just let go and let God. When you lose something or have a problem, you just let go and let God. Open up your mind. And the word if you can say that 3 times, notice how it blanks out every thought. It leaves you an opening to clear your space out of the way so spirit can come in. And that's what she does, and that's what I do, and many other people that work like I do. So we all have it. We all have this gift. But my topic for today, I'll probably vacillate along different curves here because I have so many different things I'm interested in. I'm also, for anybody that's interested, I'm a Cancer sun with a Pisces moon and a Sag rising. If anybody knows astrology, you'll know that's another reason I came into here in the now with these signs, so that I could be extra psychic. Now, what really enhanced the psychic ability was my near-death experience. That was close to 50 years ago. And back then, people didn't talk about this stuff. It was kind of like a death and dying. It's a secret. You don't talk about it. You shy away from the word. Don't say somebody's dying. It's scary. That means an end result. But it's a good day to be alive here and now on planet Earth, because we're not going to be here forever. Not in this moment, in this body, at this time. Though I do believe in reincarnation. I think we go around and around the gamut many, many times. There is no death. That was one of the songs I was going to have him play, but it would break my heart to hear it when I'm trying to talk, because we use My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion when we buried my son, who was a suicide case. And to me, that's a no-no. But he was in grief so much because he had accidentally killed his father-in-law and he couldn't live with it. He was a Pisces also. If you have a Pisces in your family, or if you're one, you know they're extremely sensitive. They may not show it all the time, but they really are. So my near-death experience, I think of the movie Ghost. Y'all have all seen that, haven't you? Does everybody know what a near-death experience is? Raise your hand if you do. Oh, good. I don't have to explain it. Everybody knows. That's good. The difference in a near-death experience and an out-of-body experience is an out-of-body experience is just when you're psyching out, like daydreaming when you're in school. The teacher's talking, you don't hear words she's saying because you're skipped out there somewhere else in left field. When you're driving a car, thank God we have angels watching over us, because many of us would be dead now if we didn't. Because we always, when we're doing something repetitious, that's when we kind of flit out and go about, I call it God's work. We're multifaceted beings doing many, many things at one time. You may not be aware of it, but you are. And thoughts are things, just like prayers go out, so do thoughts. So be careful what you think about somebody when you're looking out, and be sure that if you catch yourself being judgmental, just say, cancel, delete, over and over and over 2 or 3 times. Because this goes out to whoever you're putting that thought to. It does work. There's been a lot of testing in the last several years about all of this, and it is really truth, and it really works. Back to my NID. I've always been psychic, like Bill said, but this enhanced it. That when I had to go get a hysterectomy, and it was during recovery, they were doing 2 or 3 surgeries at the same time, and they brought another lady in just right moments after they brought me out into the recovery room. And during that time they were working on her, getting her situated in recovery, I died and left my body. I went bing, like a rubber band popped and snapped. And I looked down from the ceiling. What in the world are they doing to that woman? And then I noticed there's 2 women. There's one there and one here. I kept feeling like I should be drawn to this one here, because it was like an empty shell, like there was nothing in it, but I didn't realize it was me in there, or supposed to be in there. They were working on the other girl. And I don't know, something happened later that got their attention to me, and they started working on me. And the next thing I see this tube being poked down the nose, which was my nose. I didn't know at the time. I was thinking, why don't they just leave her alone? And then there was this roaring, rumbling, rushing sound. And I was going through this tunnel, dark, dark tunnel. Very scary, actually. And I remember at one time, up above this tunnel going through, I could see these like spirits, like empty shells. And they had horrible looks on their faces, like scary. And I didn't want to have to see this. I wanted to go on, get past it, go on. So I hurried on up through the tunnel, like I had a mission. And there was a little dot of light up there. And I remember being drawn to that dot of light. And as soon as I saw that, was aware there's a light there, boom, I was through the tunnel. I remember going through, like wading through this rainbow of colors, turning back and forth. And then I was in the light. Space doesn't go on forever, the blackness of space. The light goes on forever. And there's a rainbow of colors that churns back and forth, that holds and separates it, like the oceans, churning back and forth night and day. And in the spirit world, there are 2 different dimensions of existence too. There is a sleep time and awake time. Just like there is here. You have a night and you have a day. So it is over there. In the light time, in the daytime over there, you're in paradise, you're in a happy, beautiful, wonderful mode. But when you're shutting down, when that wave comes to put you to sleep over there, you're back in this dimension, carrying on, seeing everything going on with your friends. And there is no certain time up there. Everything seems to be just equaled out very well. And I remember thinking there might be two lines of people, good and bad. I wondered what line would I go into? I didn't really see that. I felt it. And as I was wondering that, which line would I go into? A big booming voice screamed out it like everything heard it. Your time is not as yet. I went, no, 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 don't make me go back. I don't want to go back. No, can't, don't want to go back. But then it's like I had no choice. I had to go back, fell through that tunnel, zoom as fast as anything. Hovered again, I snapped out of my body or out of my spirit. And I saw what they were doing to the body. But I also saw a little bit of a mist come away from the body and go down the hallway into room 219, which is the room I was in before surgery. And I had laid a picture of my son up against an empty water pitcher. He was 12 years old at the time. And I thought, but I was watching the mist. Now that makes me know there's a soul up here and a spirit down here. When that silver cord is severed, it disassociates it. Spirit goes on, hovers around, whatever, but the soul just continues. The soul does go on. And the soul may stay up there with its teachers and learn that it may need to make another trip. You get to talk with your guides and guardians, and they let you make up your mind where you want to go next and who you want to be with, who your parents are. So we have choices about some of these things because God's not finished with us yet, not by a long way. Got a long way to go to work our way back up to Him again, to stay forever in that light. So as I looked at that picture of that little boy, and I went, oh my God, that's my son. I've got to live, I've got to breathe. I got to make sure that he gets up there and gets on his own. And with that, I took a deep breath and another deep breath. And there was this roar sound again, like a painful roar. And I popped out, looked at the body, and I saw a green machine. I found out later was the resuscitator machine. And the hose coming out of the side of that machine was going into my nose. I was getting real confused because, like, I know I need to be in that dying body, but really don't want to go, but I gotta go. My work must not be finished yet. And with that, I took another great big breath. Then I wish I would have quit breathing because it was painful after that. I was in so much pain. It's horrible. Can't even describe it. But my blood pressure had dropped so bad, they couldn't give me anything for pain for a while. But I remember seeing from the corner of the room a crack of tile that had 3 cracks in that tile, and I was supposed to tell the nurses and doctors about it later. And I begged them to let me go back later and look at it, but they said no. I couldn't go in the recovery room like that. But I bet you some of those doctors and nurses checked that corner out and found that tile had 3 cracks in it. I didn't have any doubt. It wasn't meant for me, but I was told to remember it so I could tell it to them. And I did. It changed my world. I didn't tell anybody about it for a good while because I was afraid they'd think I was nuts or crazy. Most of them thought I was nuts already anyway because of the stuff I come up with. And I used to get spanked when I was a little girl for lying. I would be coming to my parents with these different stories about, oh, did you know she's going to die next week? Or just all kinds of, I didn't care what I said. I just knew it and I told it. I thought everybody's supposed to know, you know. Not everybody's supposed to know. you have to be selective about this stuff, you know. Even when I do work with people in readings, I ask them to begin with if they want the whole truth, nothing but the truth about what comes through spirit to them. Most of them say, yeah, but I can feel if they're just saying it and they don't really mean it. So I kind of skirt around the bush about it. I sense colors in the aura. If they're gray, you need to get to the doctor and get a good checkup. If they're brown, it's too late. I can't do anything to help them. It's meant to be. And I learned the different colors of the charts and the auras and the, you know, the 7 chakra colors and all that for healing. But I would know things about people that I shouldn't know. And I had to pray and ask God to remove this from me. I don't need to be privy of this much information about anybody, really, because it's bad enough that I scare people as it is. I don't want to frighten them to death. And it got to where it scared me sometimes. And everybody says, I don't understand. I said, no, I don't either. I just go with it. I go with the flow, you know, whatever. I just let go and let God. So I do really good with strangers. Mostly if I get anything from my family or friends, it's from a dream or if I get waked up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, JJ, and I have to call and tell her something that's come. JJ and I both are death sitters. We worked through the years with people who are dying. She's done several, so have I. When I worked at hospice, I was a death sitter. And I got the privilege for 3 weeks when my father was dying of cancer to be in hospice night and day. And they gave me a cot to sleep on in my father's room. They had to get him leveled on morphine because he was dying. And I kept him in my home for 1.5 years, took care of him. And I was able, with that time, to start really studying this stuff and reading. Like Shirley MacLaine in that movie, Out on a Limb, I read everything I could get my hands on. And talk to people, watch movies. I've got several real good metaphysical movies at home. And I was thinking on Saturdays if anybody was interested to come over and about say 1 or 2 o'clock and watch some different movies. I've got a movie about orbs. I've got movies, all kinds. JJ can tell you. I got several libraries of videos. But that's a good way to teach people, you know, is through the movies. Right now, my eyes get strained if I read too long, so I'd rather watch a movie than to have to read a book now. But police work has been rewarding and sad at the same time. But what are you going to do, you know? Has anybody in here had a NED, a near-death experience? Would they like to share it? Anybody want to share it? Love to have you share with us. You did remember it?
Oh, I remember it. Really? Do I need a mic? Yes. Is anybody on Zoom? When I was 17, I was in a coma and had a similar experience in the hospital to what you described. And I watched everything from a point above. The doctors rushing around. I lived in Maine, talking about transferring me to Boston, to Beth Israel Hospital. They couldn't do anything. And then flatlining. And it changed my life forever when I was 17. And I think that was the start of my spiritual journey, that I realized there was no such thing as death, and I didn't fear it. And I was so upset that my parents were so upset. You know, I remember that so vividly, that no, I was fine, everything's fine, just let it be, let it go. But it didn't happen. And then I had a second one, it's about 4 years ago, over in Silva Hospital, after having surgery over there from the anesthesia and flatlined in recovery. And
You'd be surprised how many people die during recovery. Because when you're on a machine through the surgery, your lungs are being forced to do it. When they take you off of that, they get lazy and they don't want to breathe anymore. And that's what had happened to me. I found out later.
Yeah, they told me I was too clean. I didn't do enough drugs, so they gave me too much anesthesia. I said, oh, well, but yeah, it's actually a wonderful experience. It is life-changing.
Yeah. Well, that's the main reason I want to talk about this, is it will take and help hopefully remove fear from you. Anybody else want to share? Okay, well, when you come over to my house sometime from 1 o'clock on Saturday, we'll share it as a little group. I can get 6 people in there at the kitchen table. Everybody bring a snack and just have good fellowship. So if anybody's interested, let JJ know and she'll make a list and we can get 5 or 6 people that's interested in coming. Come on down, y'all. I talk about everything, anything in the country that's interesting. And I wanted to explain the difference in a near-death experience and a soul travel. Somebody had mentioned that to me before. They wondered the difference in it. Well, I'm explaining to you what a near-death is. You go through the dark tunnel into the bright light. That's a near-death experience. But an out-of-body experience is, as I started to say, it's daydreaming. It's flitting out and about here and there. Or you'll read through the years many stories, as I have, maybe that a lady in Africa was hanging out clothes, and all of a sudden, for a moment, she saw her husband get a bullet, get shot, and she was on the ground, not hanging up clothes. She fell to the ground. They didn't realize it was him falling. Later that afternoon, she got news that he had been shot and had fallen to the ground. And she knew then she had, with his fear and his leaving the body, she was drawn to that experience. And I think the reason that happened is to help her release him quicker, because she got to firsthand know it and see it. See, the soul knows so much more than we know in our feeble little mind. They say that the soul resides about a foot over the body, and it stays there with you. Everybody's heard about a guardian angel that's with you when you're born and it stays with you all your life. That's your soul. That soul has all the information of everything you've ever done, said, or did in any lifetime. And there have been many, trust me, over and over and over. When they say a new soul, that's probably one that's been around just a few hundred years. An old soul is one that's been around thousands or millions of years. And so also, we do many other things on other levels, like I just said. You could be sweeping in the house and all of a sudden you've got a friend over here that's house is on fire. And you start smelling smoke. And then all of a sudden you just get a glimpse of something, but you're out and there and back and seeing it so quick that you don't remember it. Sometimes you flit out like quick and back in again, just enough to be aware of what's going on. Remote viewing is a test they've been doing, and the government's been working with this for a long time. You probably know about it, Bill. And it's true. And there is let's see, what is the man's name? That he's a doctor, and he's up Greer, Dr. something Greer. Okay, I'll leave this alone. Got so many scribblings here.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. He has a group that's every day, every night rather, they do a sky watch. And they have another room in here where they have a couple of ladies doing remote viewing. They're psyching out and writing down on paper what they're seeing. Meanwhile, these guys out in the field are filming it, and they're also watching with their binoculars and everything else and seeing what's going on. Skywatch, they call it. It's near a mountain, is it Mount Rainier? They should be doing it around Mount Shasta. Now, if you want to see something, that's where you want to go. There are beings living inside Mount Shasta. I know that for a fact. I've been there in spirit. And Saint Germain happens to be one of them. I don't know if anybody's heard of Saint Germain or not. About 15 years ago, there was a lady came to me. I was in Tampa living. She came from Jacksonville, Florida, to get a reading. And it was important to her that I confirmed something that she needed desperately to know. I do that a lot with people. I advise you to go to other psychics. Everybody's going to have something to tell you. Might be different. Sometimes it's the same thing, but usually it's different. But you have a lot of things you need to know about. You know, everybody can't do it at one time. So I advise you to do it, but go to reputable ones, people that you know are not charlatans and want to just take your money. I don't like to charge for what I do. I did for a while, but I never felt comfortable about it. I take donations, and if you don't have a job and you don't have money, fine with me. I'm not in this for the loot. I'm not. I told my husband a long time ago, I could be a rich bitch if I wanted to. I really could, because I see what they do on those online phone things. I did check into that once, by the way. You know, the reader gets 5 cents a minute, and they get almost $5, the people that's doing it. I mean, they charge you $5 a minute for a reading on the phone. Those California psychics, you'll see them advertised if you haven't already, because they start coming out of the woodwork again. I think because of all the things going on in the world now, people are desperate and they'll go anywhere and do anything to get information they need. Okay, it's 10 to 12, but he said I wasn't limited to my time. So you want me to keep going? Oh, let me see if there's any questions. Does anybody want to ask me about anything? Yes.
So I was married to a man who was a Vietnam vet, and he had PTSD. He had been in Cambodia. He was an escape and evade guy, saw really brutal, terrible things. And anyway, long story short is we were married a short time. It was not a healthy relationship for me. He was an alcoholic, which I didn't realize until after we got married. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, a lot of drama, blah, blah, blah. Domestic violence, you know. We were flying to Arizona. My dad was very sick. I was probably going to be the last time I was going to see my dad. We traveled together. We got to, I take it back. It was after my dad passed. It was for my dad's funeral. We land in Arizona and he says, I need to go to the hospital. I'm vomiting blood. And so we took him to the hospital, and I literally dropped him off with a bucket and said, I'm here to be with my family and honor my father's life. I'm kind of done with your dramas. Here's a bucket. Here's the hospital. I dropped him off. Well, my brother went there and called me a little while later and said, Charlotte, you got to come. He's potentially dying. So I go back to the hospital. They wouldn't let me in the room, but they said they were going to intubate him, which they did. And then he went into a coma. Fast forward, in the coma for 8 days. On the 8th day, the doctor said to me, we're thinking that it's possibly time to remove him from the tubes. Do you know what his wishes were? And he had said to me on the plane, he must have known he was sick, that if anything like that ever happened to him, that he wanted the plugs unplugged, you know, but there was nothing in writing. So I said to the doctors, I have to contemplate this. Well, I went into prayer and I connected with his mother, who was on the other side. And she said his work is not done. And so I sat with that. Well, my sister, coincidentally, was a healer. And she came to the hospital and she started doing reflexology on his feet. And within, I mean, less than 2 minutes of her working on his feet, he started coming back in. And as she was working on his feet, she said to him, you know, you're at a point of choice, you know. Well, he came back in, the neurologist ran in, he said, what did you do? Like he said, what did you do? Like he was shocked that he came back in. His first words to my sister were, why did you make me come back?
Yeah, yeah.
He
Yeah.
was so angry, and that anger never went away. And he ended up getting really violent with me later on. You know, it was just, he never let go of the anger. So I've contemplated this and thought, you know, did I violate his soul's journey somehow? I mean, I didn't even know my sister could bring him back. You know what I mean? Number one,
Yeah.
it wasn't like I was calling him back, but his mother had said his work wasn't done. So anyway, it all wove together the way it did. I'm curious if you have thoughts about, can someone interrupt someone's, you know, passage to the other side? And
Yes.
is that a soul violation?
I've asked that question myself many times. And I will tell you that Jesus said that in the latter days that men will cry for death and death will flee from him. I used to wonder, what does that mean? When I was 15 years old and I read that, well, now they resuscitate people all the time. So we don't know if it's a violation or not. Now, I know I had to come back because I was told your time is not as yet. And those same words have been said to many people, not just me, but through my reading and studying, I've had several people that have said the same thing. But what I want you to remember about your relationship with him and your time spent with him, there was lessons that you learned.
Oh, yeah.
Many, many.
Yeah.
But also, I want you to be aware that we're not responsible for how people take what we say, only how and what we say to them. That's our responsibility. And if we do it in tenderness and loving care, and in our heart feels good about it, that's good. Now, there's a few times I've had to be drastic with a few people. If I sense that they're, oh, that's me doing that, I'm sorry. If I sense that somebody's evil, there are good and evil people, you know that.
I don't really buy that.
Well, it's hot and cold. You do buy that, right?
Yes.
There's temperatures that are hot.
I would say there's very wounded people and people that are in touch with the divinity.
Well, if it's an evil person, they'll be born that way.
Okay.
And you'll notice it when you're a child.
He was not evil.
No, he was a wounded warrior. Yes, I agree that. And when he was dead, he was happy. And that's why he's miserable now. But he had to come back. His work wasn't finished because he had to forgive. He had a lot of forgiveness to work on here.
We didn't complete the journey. Not too long after that.
Maybe long enough,
Maybe.
you know. Our time is never God's time. But I've wondered too about, do we cut them off too quick? I mean, do we bring them back too quick? Or even cut them off too quick for us, that matters. Because some people, they let them go and give up on them when they could have been here a little longer.
Mhm.
I've seen that happen a lot.
Yeah.
And we're not the judge. And we're only the judge of how and what we do with everybody, not how they take it. Now, your sister, this was beautiful. Confirmations for her that her reflexology was good and it worked. I spontaneously did that. I don't know anything about reflexology, but there was a man that was at a party and he started having this excruciating pain. I mean, he was doubled over and screaming and hurting like crazy. Well, nobody knew what to do. It was about 20 people in this room. And I said, okay, Lord, I'll take over if you show me what to do. What do I do? I had the lady by him take his shoe and sock off on his right foot. And she did. I came over, got my chair and scooted over, grabbed his foot and started doing something with his ankle with my 2 fingers. I found out later what it was. It was reflexology. But he ended up going to the bathroom a little bit after that. By the morning, he had passed several kidney stones. And I heard that's painful for men especially. But I went, and everybody said, what did you do? I just let go and let God. I opened up and said, let go and let God. Now, JJ can witness this. It's something that happened to me. We were going to our car she was going home after a long visit that night. And there was a mouse that went running behind the freezer. Remember? And I went, oh my God, he's going to get back there and get in that fan. He's going to get killed. I just went over and picked up the freezer on the whole corner and the little mouse come running out. And I set it back down. She's looking at me like, how did you do that? I didn't even think about it. I just reacted. It's like the lady that car fell on her husband. She just picked that thing up and he was able to wiggle out. Spontaneous healing. I mean, that happens a lot of the time. So when you have a calling in your heart to help somebody, no matter who, even if it's just a prayer, you see somebody hobbling across the street and you feel compassion, send that person some prayer. Oh, dear God, be with him, help that person. We are responsible. We are our brother's keeper. We are responsible for helping anybody we're around. We're caretakers of one another because we are all one. And I heard namaste and all the things you were saying there. I love it. It was beautiful. I've got a word here I was going to try to say that my friend that came to visit me said is NOMMEHORANGGAYKEYOH. Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yes.
Okay. You got it. You got it. Okay. Then you know what this is. It's the 99 names of Allah, of God. It's also the Buddha's rosary beads. If you can say this word, learn to say it. You're doing a rosary in your mind. You might see these big brown beads that the Buddhists wear. That's what they're doing. Namni Reikeo, or whatever that is. It's beautiful. And the reason I found out about this, many years ago, I had my first channeling session. Freaked me and the other 2 ladies in the room, like big time. We're going 30 years at least ago. And we used to get together on the weekends and we'd get in my bedroom, light a candle. One would sit by the dresser, one by the bed, and I would sit at the corner of the wall. And I was told that day I was going to be doing something special tonight. And I got a call from from Odile to pray for Felicia's neck because she couldn't hardly move her neck. So we had gotten together in our special bedroom spot there with our candle. By the way, never put a candle on a mirror in the middle of the floor. I was told to never do that because it's a vortex to draw in all kinds of entities you may or may not want. So don't ever do it. It's as bad as a Ouija board. So when you open up and you're not sure what you're doing, you need to be safe. That's why when I minister, I like to have a back door. JJ is my back door. She tunes in. She watches for something that might be out there that isn't a little bit negative, that might want to possess my body, which I've almost had that happen one time too. And that does happen. Possession does happen. And when we become vulnerable and we open up to them, that's when they are happy to come and join us in your time. So back on with the pearls of faith and the Buddha's rosary. I wasn't very aware much about a Buddha at the time. Later I was, because I started studying. And the Bhagavad Gita and all these things, they're just so enlightening. And Yogananda, you heard of Yogananda? Great master. Anyway, I'm sitting there and we're talking, and I had been praying for Felicia, you know, like I usually do when we need to pray for people and everything. And next thing I noticed, Felicia's moving her head all over the place. But before, she was like, but she's all of a sudden she's like real loose and limber, like, oh, thank you, God. I said, I don't know, Felicia, if you noticed or not, but you just had a healing. And Odile says, well, who healed you? You didn't announce who was here to heal. Usually it's Mother Mary or some Jesus or somebody, one of the main, St. Michael or whatever. We only just get the good guys most of the time. No, not just kidding. Everybody's good guys. Yeah. Anyway, I started feeling a tingling all over my body and felt a tickling on top of my head. I thought, what in the world is going on here? Next thing I knew, I was snapped out of my body and I was inside the wall, looking at the top of my head. And it was bald. There was no hair on it. It was just a big old guy sitting there like this and says, good evening, ladies. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going on here? And next thing I know, these two women are huddled close together, like as close as they could be. And Felicia, the brave one, says, who are we talking to? Because she'd already read about channeling. She kind of knew what to expect, but I didn't know anything about it. And neither did Odile. And when she asked who it was, it said, I am one that they call the Buddha. Now, I found out later it's not the Buddha, but there are many Buddhas. Any of us that study God's word are his Buddha, as you know. And all of a sudden, I could feel these eyes burning. I could kind of see them. It must have scared them to death because neither one would ever tell me what they really saw. They just said, it was not you. It wasn't you. And I said, was it an ET? No. It looked human, but it had some big old eyes. It scared the mud out of us. And we don't remember much after that. But I remember it says, Felicia, where are your pearls? She says, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean? Oh no, you lost your pearls. Oh my God. This cry that came out of my body, I'm still watching it. Oh no, you've lost your pearls. And this thing was crying. I mean, scared my little old Yorkie dog to death. It went running into the living room. Took me a while to get it to come back in there too. And then finally I came back into my body and I felt kind of a little bit drained, but excited at the same time. And Felicia said, you just did your out of body channeling. I said, what? She said, that's what you just did. I said, I don't know if I'd like that or not. Let something else take over my body. That's kind of too much like a Baptist talk about a possession. You know, I don't want none of that stuff going on. But we cut out every dictionary we could about pearls. What? It's got to be meaning something. So what was this Buddha talking about? Pearls of wisdom. She didn't have her wisdom anymore. She was living with an alcoholic husband. He was being hateful to her and she was taking the verbal abuse. and scared to leave the house. And she had lost her pearls. And that's what this was about. Have any of you gained any pearls of wisdom today with this talk? It's already way after 12, so I gotta get it over with it, shut my mouth, but I could go on forever. Spontaneously talking with JJ on my porch one time when we came back from here, wasn't it? 3 hours, 3 hours without my oxygen. I didn't realize it. We were channeling, me and her, spontaneously, both of us, in the rocking chairs, and it was actually cool out there. And we really didn't realize that it was 3 hours we'd been sitting there. And I forgot to plug my oxygen up from the one I have on the porch, like I usually wear. So anyway, has anybody got anything they want to share or any more questions real quick? Yes.
I've been chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo for 44 years. And thank you. I had a near-death experience, but it wasn't mine. It was my brother. And we were both doing drugs a lot. This is back in the 60s. And I got tired of him doing what we had a little of left, but I wouldn't give him any more. He wanted what I had left. I wouldn't give it to him. So he said, oh, well, fuck it. Take me to the bus station. I'm going out. And I did. I took him to the bus station. It's in Philadelphia, and took a bus and went to New York, and he OD'd in New York that next day, I guess. I don't know when. But it was like I had died, but I didn't want to die, and I didn't want him to die, but he was so mentally messed up. He could never get over anything. He couldn't go to school. He couldn't finish anything. He was always running away, and I was the one who was doing pretty good. So he was jealous of me for that. And anyway, long story short, I've been spending a lot of my time chanting for his happiness and knowing that life is eternal. But at the same time, the pain's still there in my life, to where it really encouraged me to hear your story about psychic abilities and Buddhism and everything. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. So welcome. And you have not done this in vain, and don't feel guilty about his death. Could have been you.
Yep.
Could have been you. And you may not have come back and be here now,
That's right. Yeah.
because you have a job to do too, and you're doing it just anywhere you're at. We are here to help no matter where we are. Yeah. Bless you.
You have just shot little pearls of wisdom all over the room.
Oh, I hope so. And I hope I've eased your minds about death and dying a lot. I've got pictures up here if y'all want to look at them when it gets through with everything here.